Hey, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Cecil Conaty, as it says there. I'm currently working as the Quality Development Manager with Wellman International. I suppose I would like to thank NESC, first of all, for inviting us here today and giving us the opportunity to speak to you. Secondly, we'd like to thank Simon for considering us as one of, I think, 50 companies he considered, 50 organisations, and we were one of the 10 that he considered for a case study. So thanks, Simon, for that. So Wellman International, we're 40 years in business. We're located down in the North Meath, Cavan border in a place called Mulla. And since 2011 we've been involved and owned by a multinational company called Indorama Ventures. So our name is kind of changing from Wellman to Wellman International, Indorama. We're producers of high quality polyester staple fibres, so polyester fibres, primarily from recycled sources, and hence the involvement in the case study. About 80% of our raw material currently comes from recycled materials. The organisation globally has a €7.5 billion or dollar turnover. They're operating now in 21 countries, over 14,000 people, operating at 65 individual sites. The Wellman organisation itself accounts for 3 of those sites and is the primary recycling source within the Indorama Group. Just to give you a scale of the company again globally, ourselves, we're located obviously here in Ireland, but within Wellman we have 2 recycling plants, one located in France in an area called Verdun and the other in the Netherlands in a small town called Spike. We set up those plants in the 1990s to take primarily PET bottles from European sources to wash, clean and granulate those bottles and send them over to our site in Mulla for recycling into fibre. From our point of view, we're 4 decades in the business in Mulla, and we've started with recycling. Our plant was set up in 1973 primarily to recycle polyester. At that stage, polyester for us was coming from post-industrial sources, so from other fibre industries, primarily in Europe. As time went on, the fibre industries in Europe closed down, primarily moved to Asia, and our sources of recycled materials were drying up. Thankfully, the late 80s and early 90s, we identified a new source, which was PET bottles, so soft drinks bottles, and we switched the main source of our input material from post-industrial at that stage into post-consumer. We then set up our plants in the Netherlands and in France to get the bottles, wash them, granulate them and bring them over to Ireland for conversion into fibre. At that stage there was very little to no PET bottles available, certainly in Ireland or in the UK. We had to go to places like Germany, France, the Benelux countries to get those materials. That is changing somewhat, but not to a huge degree. Our main sources still come from those countries. We get a very small amount of bottles from the Irish market, but there are issues which I'll talk about later in terms of quantity and quality there, and the UK is not far behind us either. Annually in Mulla we recycle about 2.6 billion half-litre PET bottles. For us that equates to about 70,000 tonnes of flake. And to give you a scale of that, every day in Mulla we recycle about 8 million PET bottles. That equates for us in production about 90 bottles every second that we're in manufacturing gets recycled through our plant. We turn that into 90,000 tonnes of fibre, so our annual output in Mulla is almost at this stage 90,000 tonnes. And as I said, 80% of that raw material input comes from a recycled source. In total, between our 3 sites, we have 380 people employed. In Mulla, we have 270 direct employees on the site currently. So a fairly significant employer from a recycled background down in the North Meath, Cavan area. Just to give you some idea of what the 2.6 billion means, we're saving annually, we estimate, almost 200 million kilos of CO2 emissions. 900,000 barrels of oil. And something that we're very, very proud of ourselves, in terms of comparison with virgin polyester fibre, we're about a quarter of the carbon footprint. So we reckon we're just under a kilo per kilo of fibre, where virgin PET producers into the fibre industry are about 4 kilos per kilo of fibre. So that's something we would heavily promote in the marketplace when we're promoting rPET and recycled fibre. That's just an image of our site in Mulla. It's a 10-hectare site, 26 acres. As I said, it evolved since 1973. The site in 73 was a 5,000 tonne capacity per year and 150 employees. We've grown that to 90,000 tonnes, and as I said, on the site there's about 300 people working, 270 of those are direct Wellman employees. We're a fairly self-sufficient site. As you see, it's a very rural location, so everything we have is almost contained on the site. Our water sources come locally. We have our own effluent treatment plant, so we're self-sufficient as a plant as well. We don't link into any urban schemes in terms of sewerage, discharge, or even water intake for that matter. To give you an idea of what we do with our recycled PET when we turn it into fibre, we create polyester fibres with various profiles. So we have solid fibres, hollow fibres, and fibres of various shapes, trilobals, pentilobals. We produce a range of decitexes, which is fibre thickness, a range of cut lengths, crimp levels, and colour. We produce fibres primarily white, but we can also produce black, blues, greens, and at the moment we're getting into more and more different colours in terms of the automotive industry which we supply into. Some of the end uses for our product, we have 4 broad families. We have industrial, personal hygiene, automotive, and home apparel. Home apparel would have been our traditional outlet for our materials, so things like your pillows, duvets, cushions, home furnishings, carpets. Over the years then, we've moved into more higher value added end products. That's to allow us to stay in business, number one. We're one of very few fibre manufacturing organisations left in Europe. We're the only one in Ireland, and as I said, one of a handful now left in Europe. Fibre manufacture has moved primarily to Asia. So it's something that's, something we're very proud of. We're here 40 years. We're innovative, and we're doing it all in the background of a recycled input material. From an industrial point of view, we supply into things like pipe lining, so cured in place piping, so for refurbishment of foul drain systems, geotextiles, thermal insulation, acoustic insulation. Personal hygiene is a big area for us and a growing area. Baby diapers is our current biggest market there, but we're also getting into femcare, adult incontinence, and very recently into the medical end use. So we're putting recycled material ultimately back into very high value added, very critical industries, and as I said, the latest one for us is medical applications. So bandage and wound care and pressure relief primarily. Automotive, again, is a growing part of our business, so things like molded parts, the carpets in your car, and thermal and acoustic insulation in the vehicles. Our products enable the main manufacturers to lightweight their vehicles. That's one thing we do, so we're replacing heavier products with lightweight products. And we're also allowing automotive manufacturers to say they're increasing the recycled content within their car. And any product that we produce that goes into an automotive industry, we can take that back in a closed loop system and recycle it back into fibres again. So a little bit of the background of how we make the fibre. This is our raw material storage area. We have about 40 silos at our plant in Mulla. And this is very important to us. Because we're recycling, blending of materials of different quality and of different forms is critical to our process. So we have a large number of storage silos to allow us to blend different qualities, different types of flakes, and also post-industrial materials together to make a recipe to ultimately make the fibres that are our end products. We take all that material, we dry it, and we spin it through an extrusion process into the individual filaments of fibre. This image here is looking up towards what we call a spinneret or a spinning die. The material has been dried, melted at 265 degrees, and then pumped or forced through a metal plate with thousands of tiny holes. And that gives us the individual fibre shape and form. We then quench that very, very quickly, and that forms your solid fibre. We then take that fibre and we prepare it and finish it in our final process. So you can see the fibre, it's the white material here. We then take the spun fibre, we take it, we stretch it, we crimp it, so that gives it form and bulk and shape. We apply a topical coat to give it various attributes or various qualities. So it could be a hydrophilic, a hydrophobic, a soft, a slick, a harsh feel to the fibre. I'm on the 1 minute warning at this stage. We cut it and finally put it into bales of fibre. So that's a picture of our warehouse in Mulla. That's our end product, bales of fibre. As I said, 80% of our input is from recycled sources. Each bale weighs about 300 kilos, and that ends up going to our customer, who will ultimately convert that into the product that you might see on the shelf. So a pillow, a duvet, a baby diaper, the carpet in your car, the insulation in your house, the insulation in your car, the filter hood in your cooker. A lot of those products come from polyester fibres. And last slide, just to give you a view on where we see the circular economy, and particularly on some challenges that we see for us in Mulla and for us as RPET or PET recyclers. First, it starts with design, and we're seeing more and more complex designs coming out that gives us increasing challenges in terms of sorting that material out and getting it to a quality that we can produce a high value added product. Multiple and complex polymers, barrier layers, trying to increase shelf life of products. Beer going into PET bottles. That allows the manufacturers, or requires the manufacturers, to put in barrier layers in between PET. That gives our sorting technology a huge headache in trying to identify that. We put those materials into our extruders, we end up with production problems and quality issues. New generation glues. You mightn't think it, but glues are evolving all the time. Manufacturers want to use less glue, it's cheaper, and they want better quality glue to affix labels to bottles. That gives our sorting and washing technologies huge headaches because they're evolving at such a rapid pace. Multicolour design. Ideally, one would like to see clear and blue bottles. You walk into a supermarket, into the convenience store, and you see a multitude of colours of drinks in bottles. It's the fashion, it's what the market is doing. You try and sort that out, it's hugely complex. Quality is key for us. We done a study recently, and it was Irish bottles, and we had about a 40% yield. So for every tonne of PET that was collected, when we sorted it, we were getting only 40% of actual PET. The rest was waste, other polymers. So quality is absolutely critical to our process. Recycling technology lags behind the design. Manufacturers of the bottles are moving faster than we're moving with the technology. And we require significant capital investment. A simple flake sorting machine or a bottle sorting machine will cost us €250,000 upwards. We need multiples of those in a sorting line to get the quality that we require. It's a huge investment. Availability of bottles. The EU Commission reckons 24% of plastic waste is recycled. There's still up to 50% of that going into landfill. We're competing against Asian markets. We see very, very active Asian buyers in the EU competing at prices that we just simply cannot compete with. So we're losing this valuable resource out of Europe, competing against European business, and very often for Wellman coming back as fibre at prices again that we cannot compete with. But to finish on I suppose a positive note, collaboration is key. We believe in terms of the circular economy, it starts with the consumer and ends with the consumer. The consumer has the power to put the bottles, the plastic into the correct bin, to sort it at that source. The consumer has the power to say, we believe in recycled materials, we're prepared to go out and shop and pay and buy those materials. The waste management companies, the recyclers and the manufacturers need to work together. And a good example that we have at the moment is we're currently working with a customer of ours collecting plastic waste from the Catalan seashore on the Mediterranean coast. We're taking the PET element of that, we're turning it into chip, turning it into fibre, and bringing it back into 100% recycled clothing coming from basically ocean waste. And that's collaboration. So trying to end on a positive note, I think, there is lots going on, there is lots of opportunities, but there is also some very, very key challenges for us. Thank you.